For centuries, we thought the moon was just a stone in the sky. We were wrong. It was a timer. At exactly 11:11 p.m., the alignment reached critical mass. The blood moon began. But this wasn't an eclipse, it was a trigger. The Crimson Protocol had been activated. By midnight, the moon hung like a red eye, and then the laws of physics simply stopped. Dr. Evelyn Carter watched as her data hotlined. The moon wasn't moving, the protocol was holding it in place. The celebration died in the streets. Silence became a weapon, felt by every soul on Earth. Out of the darkness came a man who had been tracking this protocol since the beginning of time. He didn't bring science, he brought the key to the sixth seal, the script of our destruction. 6 a.m. arrived, but the sun was missing. The protocol had locked the world in an eternal red night. Then, the Earth began to scream. The blood moon had triggered the end. 6:05 a.m. The world waited for the morning light, but the Crimson Protocol had other plans. When the sun finally crested the horizon, it was not a ball of fire, but a void of sackcloth. As the light died, the Earth began to react. A deep, guttural moan rose from the crust. This was no ordinary quake. It was a global tectonic shift triggered by the moon's standstill. Inside the observatory, the walls of science began to crumble under the weight of prophecy. Then, the heavens began to shed their lights. The stars fell like untimely figs from a shaken tree. Amidst the chaos, the skeptic and the believer were forced into a desperate alliance. The atmosphere warped, rolling back like an ancient scroll to reveal the terrifying face of the void. The kings of the earth fled to their bunkers, begging the mountains to fall and hide them. The earthquake was just the beginning. The first trumpet was preparing to sound. The atmosphere was no longer a shield. The Crimson Protocol was stripping the earth bare. The heavens departed as a scroll when it is rolled together. Physics had surrendered to prophecy. Inside the observatory, the pressure dropped. Every breath became a struggle for survival. Then, the true rain began. Not water, but the stars of heaven falling to the earth. They fell like fruit from a tree shaken by a mighty wind. No corner of the globe was safe. Every mountain and island was moved out of its place. The map of the world was being rewritten. The rich and powerful realized their gold couldn't buy a breath of air or a moment of safety. Amidst the celestial collapse, Pastor Reed found the strength that science couldn't provide. Dr. Carter looked at her useless monitors. The stars were gone, and the darkness was absolute. The sky was gone, the earth was broken, and then the silence of the seventh seal began. The silence of the seventh seal was a void, but now the first trumpet was loosed. A rain of hail and fire mingled with blood was cast upon the green earth. A third of the trees were burned up, and all green grass, the lungs of the planet, were failing. Then the second trumpet sounded. A great mountain burning with fire was cast into the sea. The protocol's command was clear. A third of the sea became blood, and a third of the living creatures died. A great star, burning as it were a lamp, fell upon the rivers. It was named Wormwood. A third of the waters became bitter, and many men died because the waters were made deadly. Amidst the poisoned rivers, Pastor Reed found the only source of pure water left on Earth. Dr. Carter analyzed the water. It wasn't natural pollution, it was a molecular curse. The oceans were dead, the rivers were poisoned, but the fifth trumpet was about to unlock the abyss. The fifth trumpet sounded, and a star fell from heaven with a key to the shaft of the abyss. He opened the bottomless pit, and smoke rose like the smoke of a great furnace. The sun and the air were darkened. The protocol was now suffocating the world in shadow. But it wasn't just smoke. Out of the darkness, the locusts of the pit began to emerge. They were shaped like horses prepared for battle, with crowns of gold and faces like men. Their teeth were as the teeth of lions, and their tails carried the sting of a scorpion.
Their mission? To torment those without the seal. For 5 months, men would seek death and not find it. Dr. Carter tried to find a biological weakness, but the creatures defied every law of nature.
They had a king over them, the angel of the bottomless pit. His name is Abaddon. One woe was past, but the sixth trumpet is stirring the great river. The sixth trumpet sounded, and a voice echoed from the 4 horns of the golden altar. The next phase of the protocol was authorized. The command was given. loosed the 4 angels who were bound in the great river Euphrates. The Euphrates didn't just dry up, it evaporated in an instant, carving a highway for the kings of the east. 200 million, an army so large its numbers defied human calculation. The protocol was now a war. Their breastplates were of fire, jacinth, and brimstone. They were not made of flesh and bone. The heads of the horses were as the heads of lions. Out of their mouths issued fire, smoke, and brimstone. By these 3 plagues, a third of mankind was killed. The population of the world was being purged. Dr. Carter stared at the satellite feed. The speed of the massacre was mathematically impossible. It wasn't a war, it was an execution. Their power was in their mouths and in their tails, which were like serpents having heads to cause injury. Despite the carnage, the world refused to turn. The stage was set for the 2 witnesses to take the stand. While the east burned, the Crimson Protocol focused its signal on the Temple Mount in Jerusalem. 2 figures appeared, clothed in rough sackcloth. They were the final voice of the warning. If anyone sought to harm them, fire proceeded from their mouths to devour their enemies. They commanded the sky to withhold its rain. For 1,200 days, the world turned to dust. Dr. Carter watched as the prophet's message bypassed every digital firewall on the planet. But once their testimony was finished, the beast from the bottomless pit rose to silence them. The prophets were slain. Their bodies were left in the street as a trophy for a world that hated the truth. The world rejoiced. Gifts were sent from city to city, celebrating the death of the men who troubled them. 3 days later, the spirit of life from God entered them. To the horror of the world, they stood up. As a voice called them home, the earth shook. The protocol was shifting to its final economic reset. The global economy didn't just crash, it was deleted in a single pulse. Out of the ash arose a new architect, a leader promising order through a single unified system. The protocol issued a new mandate. No man might buy or sell, save he that had the mark. It wasn't a card or a chip, it was a bioluminescent frequency etched in the right hand or the forehead. Dr. Carter analyzed the mark signal. It wasn't just a currency, it was a rewrite of the human genome. Pastor Reed knew the cost. This wasn't a choice about survival, it was a final transaction for the soul. The world lined up, some for bread, some for safety, all of them trading their freedom for a place in the protocol. The protocol's enforcer performed great wonders, calling fire from the sky to prove his divinity. For those who refused, there was only the wilderness. Evelyn and Reed became ghosts in their own world. The marks were set, the economy was locked. Now the kings of the earth were gathering for the final war. The protocol reached its terminal phase. Spirits of deceit led the kings of the earth to the valley of their final stand. Megiddo, the plain of Armageddon, a landscape forged for the collision of 2 worlds. The marked were no longer individuals. They were a single digitized hive mind programmed for a war they couldn't win. Across the dry Euphrates, the kings of the east marched, their armies fused with the dark energy of the abyss. Dr. Carter saw it on the long-range sensors. Not just an army, but a biological corruption of the entire planet. Pastor Reed knew the time of shadows was ending. The true light was preparing to break the protocol's hold. The air grew heavy with the 7th vial. A voice from the throne cried out, "It is done." Every city crumbled. The islands fled. The Crimson Protocol was tearing itself apart under the weight of judgment. Then the sky split, not a scroll this time, but a gateway of blinding, righteous fire. The King of Kings was coming, and the Crimson Protocol was about to be deleted. The protocol's fire was nothing compared to the flame that descended from the split sky. The beast and the false prophet were seized, their system overridden by a higher power. Dr. Carter watched the protocol's source code dissolve into static. The global corruption was being purged. The black sun was gone. A true, warm sunrise broke over the horizon, healing the poisoned atmosphere. The first heaven and the first earth passed away. The physical scars of the protocol vanished. Then, the holy city, New Jerusalem, came down out of heaven, prepared as a bride adorned for her husband. There was no more need for the sun nor the moon. The glory was its light. The night was over. God wiped away every tear. Death was deleted. Sorrow was closed.
The protocol was finalized. Scientists and prophets stood on the foundation of the new reality. Their wait was over. The system was restored. The blood moon was just a memory. The Crimson Protocol was closed forever.